They thought they were predators. They were wrong. You want to know what's happening right now? Right this second? There's a room, fluorescent lights, cheap coffee, circle of chairs, and in that circle sit the broken remains of people who once walked with confidence. People who once smiled knowing they had power. People who once believed they were apex. They're not smiling anymore. This is their story. But more importantly, this is the story of what you did to them without even trying, without even knowing, without lifting a single finger in retaliation. Let's go back to when they thought they were hunters. They studied you like you were a dissertation, like you were a problem to solve, like you were prey worth tracking. Remember when you noticed them watching, when conversations would stop as you entered rooms, when people who used to greet you suddenly found their phones fascinating. That wasn't paranoia. That was reconnaissance. They were gathering intelligence. Sarah from accounting spent 3 months cataloging your routines. What time you arrived, what time you left, who you talked to, who you avoided, where you ate lunch. She had a notebook, an actual physical notebook where she documented your patterns like you were a target in a military operation. Marcus from your old friend group. He went through 7 years of your social media. 7 years. He screenshot every vulnerable post, every moment of weakness you'd shared, every time you'd asked for help, every time you'd admitted struggle. He was building an arsenal. Jennifer, she took a different approach. She interviewed people from your past, ex-friends, former colleagues, that teacher who never liked you. She was constructing a psychological profile, finding pressure points, identifying which wounds hadn't healed yet. They had meetings, actual coordinated meetings where they planned your destruction like it was a corporate strategy session. Hit them here. This is where they're weakest. If we time it right, they'll never recover. They believed they were tacticians, strategists. They believed they were intelligent and you were simple. They believed they had the advantage because they were operating in secret while you walked around oblivious. They were mapping your vulnerabilities like a military campaign, maps enemy territory. And you were just living, just existing, just trying to get through your days without knowing that somewhere people were sharpening knives with your name on them. Then came the execution phase. They launched their assault with precision, with coordination, with the confidence of people who'd done their homework and absolutely knew this would work. Sarah started the whisper campaign at work. Little comments, tiny seeds of doubt planted in the right ears. I'm worried about them. Have you noticed they've been acting strange? I heard something concerning. Nothing direct. Nothing you could confront. Just poison dripped slowly into the well of your professional reputation. Marcus moved on your social circle. He shared those screenshots, those vulnerable moments you'd posted when you needed support, but he shared them with commentary, with mockery, with a narrative that painted your pain as weakness, your honesty as instability, your authenticity as performance. Look how desperate they are for attention. This is clearly a cry for help. They've always been like this. Jennifer went for the throat. She contacted people you were building new relationships with. She warned them about you, told them you were toxic, unstable, dangerous. She provided evidence, those curated stories from your past, taken out of context, weaponized. And for a moment, it worked. You felt it, didn't you? The ground shifting beneath you, the world getting colder, support systems evaporating, opportunities disappearing. People who used to return your calls suddenly screening them, invitations stopping, doors closing. They watched this happen with satisfaction, with glee, with the deep pleasure of predators who've successfully cornered their prey. They increased the pressure. Sarah escalated at work, filing HR complaints, designed to create a paper trail. Marcus started DMing your friends directly, forcing them to choose sides. Jennifer expanded her campaign, reaching out to your family, planting doubt even there. They had you surrounded, isolated, alone. They were closing in for the kill. They could taste victory. They could feel it. This was the moment where you were supposed to break, where you were supposed to collapse, where you were supposed to beg, where you were supposed to give them the satisfaction they'd been working toward for months. They waited for your breakdown, for your public meltdown, for your desperate defense, for your rage, for your tears, for your surrender. But something went wrong. You didn't break. You didn't fight back. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't even seem to notice the campaign against you. You just kept going. And that's when the first crack appeared in their plan. See, they'd built their entire strategy on the assumption that you needed what they were taking away. They assumed your sense of self was dependent on others' opinions. They assumed your strength came from external validation. They assumed your peace required their approval. They assumed you were like them. But you weren't. While they were orchestrating your isolation, you were finding clarity in solitude. While they were destroying your reputation, you were discovering you didn't need it. While they were turning people against you, you were learning who actually mattered. Every attack they launched, every trap they set, every weapon they deployed, it all passed through empty space where they expected to find your ego, your need, your desperation. But there was nothing there to hit. And that's when the reversal began. Not dramatically, not with some grand confrontation. The reversal began quietly, microscopically, with a simple observation. You were fine. Sarah noticed it first. She'd escalated to the point where she thought you'd surely react, surely defend yourself, surely show some sign of damage. But you walked past her in the hallway with the same neutral expression you always had. Not angry, not hurt, not even aware. She went home that night and couldn't sleep. Because if you weren't broken, if you weren't suffering, if you weren't even bothered, then what had she been doing for 3 months? What had she become? Marcus saw it when he ran into you at a coffee shop. You were alone, reading a book, completely at peace. He'd destroyed your friend group. He'd isolated you. He'd turned people you loved against you. And you were sitting there drinking coffee like none of it mattered. He spent the next week checking your social media obsessively, looking for signs of pain, desperate for evidence that his campaign had worked. But your posts were normal, unremarkable, unbothered. The prey wasn't wounded. The prey wasn't running. The prey wasn't even playing the game. And that's when they started to realize they weren't hunting you. You were the territory they'd entered and now couldn't leave. The support group started 6 months after their coordinated attack. Not because you did anything to them. Not because you retaliated or struck back or even acknowledged what they'd done. It started because they couldn't stop thinking about you. Sarah was the first to seek help. She told her therapist about the campaign against you, about the planning, about the execution, about how it should have worked, about how you should have broken. Her therapist asked a simple question. Why does it matter so much that they didn't break? Sarah couldn't answer. She left that session and cried in her car for an hour. Marcus found himself obsessively checking your social media multiple times a day, looking for evidence of suffering he'd caused, looking for validation that his cruelty had impact, looking for proof that he mattered enough to hurt you. He found nothing. Just you, living your life, completely unaffected. He started having panic attacks. His own friendships began deteriorating because he couldn't stop talking about you, about the person who wouldn't break, about the prey that wasn't prey. Jennifer developed insomnia. She'd lie awake at night, replaying her campaign, all those conversations, all those warnings she'd given about you, all those bridges she'd burned in your name. And for what? You were still standing, still calm, still moving forward like none of it had happened. She started calling people she'd warned about you, trying to gauge if they'd noticed your instability, but they hadn't, because it didn't exist. She'd built an elaborate narrative about a monster that turned out to be a person who was doing fine. Better than fine. Better than her. The three of them found each other through mutual acquaintances, compared notes, realized they'd all been experiencing the same thing, an inability to move on from someone who'd clearly moved on from them. They'd all become obsessed with their failed victim. That's when Jennifer suggested the support group. Maybe talking about it will help us process and let go. The room they rent is in a community center. Every Thursday, 7 p.m., the group has grown. It's not just Sarah, Marcus, and Jennifer anymore. There's David, who tried to sabotage your career and watched you get promoted instead. There's Michelle, who spread rumors about your mental health and then watched you thrive. There's Robert, who tried to humiliate you publicly and somehow ended up humiliating himself. There's Amanda, who cut you off thinking you'd beg for her friendship back. You never did. Now she monitors your life from a distance, watching you build better friendships, and she can't understand why it eats at her. 12 people total now. 12 people who each thought they were the hunter. 12 people who each tried to break you in different ways. 12 people who each failed. And 12 people who can't stop thinking about you. The meetings follow a pattern. Someone starts, "My name is Aprunals, and I tried to break someone who wouldn't break." The group responds, "Hi, Vul." Then they talk. They share their stories. They confess their tactics. They describe what they did and how they were certain it would work. And then they talk about the aftermath, about how you're doing fine, about how you've moved on, about how you don't seem to carry any scars from their attacks, about how they're the ones who are scarred. Sarah talks about how she can't enjoy her work anymore because she spent so much energy trying to destroy yours. How every professional success feels hollow because she knows she wasted months of her life on a vendetta that accomplished nothing. Marcus admits he destroyed real friendships in his campaign against you. People who were actually good to him, he sacrificed on the altar of his hatred for you. And now he's alone, still checking your social media, still looking for evidence that you're suffering as much as he is. You're not. Jennifer confesses that she's become known as the person who warns others about people. She's developed a reputation. People avoid getting close to her because they're afraid they'll become her next target. She tried to isolate you, and ended up isolating herself. The new members share similar stories. Different tactics, same result. They all thought they were predators. They all thought they had the power, and they all failed. But here's what really haunts them. Here's what keeps them coming back to this room every Thursday. It's not that you survived their attacks. Survival they could understand. Survival would mean you were wounded but endured. Survival would mean they at least left a mark. But you didn't just survive. You were unaffected. Their most coordinated efforts, their most vicious tactics, their most calculated cruelties, you processed them like weather. Like something that happened to you but didn't happen to you. They threw everything they had, and it was like throwing stones at the ocean. The ocean doesn't fight back. The ocean doesn't even notice. The ocean just continues being the ocean. And somehow that's more devastating than any revenge you could have taken. In their 47th meeting, something shifted. Jennifer was sharing about how she'd seen you recently. You'd looked happy, genuinely, unperformatively happy. And something about that image broke something in her. I don't think they ever even knew, she said quietly. The room went silent. What do you mean? Sarah asked. I don't think they ever even knew what we were doing. I don't think they noticed. I don't think we mattered enough to them to notice. Marcus stood up, agitated. That's not possible. They had to have known. They had to have felt it. But Jennifer shook her head. Did they ever confront us? Did they ever defend themselves? Did they ever even ask us why? The silence in the room was deafening. Because no, you never did any of those things. And that's when the final horrible truth settled over them like a shroud. They weren't predators who failed to kill their prey. They were never predators at all. They were people who convinced themselves they were hunting someone, who didn't even know they existed, who didn't register their attacks as attacks, who processed their cruelty as background noise in a life too full of actual substance to be derailed by their manufactured drama. You weren't prey that escaped. You were never prey to begin with. You were just a person, living your life, working on yourself, building your future. And they were so far beneath your awareness that their entire coordinated campaign barely registered as a mild inconvenience. While they spent months planning your destruction, you spent months planning your evolution. While they studied your weaknesses, you were eliminating them. While they sharpened their weapons, you were becoming bulletproof without even trying. Not through some deliberate defense, not through some calculated counterstrike. You became untouchable simply by not needing anything they could take away. The support group will meet again next Thursday, and the Thursday after that, and the Thursday after that. 'Cause here's the thing about trying to break someone who won't break. It breaks you instead. They can't move on. They've tried. They've all tried. But every time they see you in person, on social media, through mutual connections, they're reminded of their failure. Not failure to destroy you, failure to matter to you at all. Sarah sees you and remembers all those hours spent planning, all that energy wasted, all that darkness she cultivated in herself, and for what? You don't even remember her. Marcus sees you and remembers the friendships he burned, the person he became, the obsession he developed, and you've forgotten his name. Jennifer sees you and remembers all those conversations where she warned people about you. All that time she could have spent building her own life instead of trying to destroy yours. and you've never thought about her twice. They're ghosts haunting someone who doesn't believe in ghosts. They're hunters who became the hunted, stalked by their own failed cruelty, trapped in a prison of their own making. The irony is exquisite. They wanted you to suffer eternally from what they did to you. Instead, they're suffering eternally from what they did to themselves. You absorbed their attacks like earth absorbs rain. It waters you. It nourishes you. It helps you grow. And they're left in that room every Thursday, trying to understand how someone they tried so hard to break is doing better than they are. Trying to understand how the prey became the predator without even trying. Trying to understand how they lost a game you never agreed to play. Here's what they'll never admit in that support group, but what they all know in their private 3 a.m. moments of clarity. You didn't just survive their attack. You didn't even notice it enough to call it an attack. While they were plotting your downfall, you were plotting your evolution. While they were coordinating your isolation, you were discovering you preferred solitude. While they were destroying your reputation, you were building character that doesn't need reputation. While they were trying to break you, you were breaking generational curses, toxic patterns, and limitations that were actually holding you back. They thought they were taking things from you. They were actually removing obstacles. You didn't have time to remove yourself. Every fake friend they turned against you, that's a person who would have betrayed you eventually. They just expedited the process. Every opportunity they blocked, that's a path that would have led you somewhere you didn't belong. They just saved you time. Every person they warned about you, that's someone whose judgment is so easily manipulated, they were never going to be in your life long term anyway. They thought they were destroying you. They were actually curating your life for you, removing everyone and everything that wasn't strong enough to withstand pressure. And now you're surrounded only by what's real, what's solid, what's actually worth having. While they're in a support group trying to process their failure, you're building an empire on the foundation they thought they were destroying. The hunters became the hunted. The predators became the prey. And you were never in their game at all. You were always playing a different one. A bigger one, a better one, and they'll spend the rest of their lives trying to understand how you won, without even knowing you were competing. Welcome to Thursday night, 7 p.m., room 3B, the support group for people who tried to break you and failed. Population, growing. Duration, indefinite. Prognosis. There is no cure for the haunting of failed cruelty. They thought they were predators. They were wrong, and they'll never stop paying for that mistake.
You ever notice how some people just vanish from your life right before things start turning around? You ever sit there and wonder why the ones you love the most are not here to see you finally getting what you deserve? It hurts, doesn't it? It stings like a wound that never fully heals. You gave them everything. You poured your soul into them. You stayed loyal when loyalty meant suffering and silence. And then, one day they were gone. No warning, no explanation, just absence, just that cold, empty space where they used to be. And you blamed yourself, didn't you? You thought maybe you weren't good enough. Maybe you did something wrong. Maybe you pushed too hard or not hard enough. You sat in that darkness, replaying every conversation, every argument, every moment, wondering where it all went wrong. But let me tell you something today that might change the way you see everything. They didn't leave because you failed. They were removed because they were never meant to see you win. Let that sink in for a moment. God didn't let them stay because their presence would have poisoned your victory. Their eyes were not worthy of witnessing the glory that's coming your way. Their hearts were too small to celebrate the success that's about to explode in your life. They were never designed to stand beside you at the finish line. They were just chapters in your story. Important chapters, yes, but chapters that had to end so the real story could begin. You see, most people don't understand how divine removal works. They think when someone leaves, it's a punishment. They think it's rejection. They think it's proof that they're unlovable or unworthy. But that's not how God operates. Sometimes the most painful goodbyes are actually the most powerful protections. Sometimes losing someone is the only way to find yourself. Sometimes the exit of the wrong people is the entrance of the right season. Think about it for a second. Where would you be right now if they had stayed? Would you have grown this much? Would you have learned these lessons? Would you have discovered this strength inside you that you never knew existed? Probably not, because they were comfortable, weren't they? They were familiar, and familiarity has a way of keeping you stuck. It has a way of making you settle for less than you deserve. It has a way of convincing you that mediocre love is the best you're ever going to get. But God saw more for you. He saw the potential they were blocking. He saw the dreams they were dimming. He saw the fire they were slowly putting out. And because he loved you too much to let you waste away in their shadow, he removed them. Not to hurt you, not to punish you, but to free you, to launch you, to position you for something so big that their small minds could never comprehend it. You need to understand something about the people who leave. Most of them don't leave because they don't care. They leave because they can't handle where you're going. Your destiny intimidates them. Your growth exposes them. Your light reveals the darkness they've been hiding, and instead of rising with you, they choose to run from you. That's not your fault. That's their limitation. That's their fear. That's their inability to evolve. And here's the painful truth. Some of them loved you. I know that's hard to hear, but it's true. Some of them genuinely cared about you in their own broken way. But love without capacity is just affection with an expiration date. They loved you as much as they could, but their love had a ceiling. And your destiny has no limits. So eventually, something had to give, and that something was them. Don't hate them for it. Don't waste your energy on bitterness. Don't spend another sleepless night wondering why they couldn't stay. They couldn't stay because they were not built for the altitude you're about to reach. They couldn't breathe in the atmosphere of your blessing. They would have suffocated on your success. And deep down you know this. You felt it even when they were still around. You felt like you were shrinking yourself to fit into their world. You felt like you were dimming your light so they wouldn't feel intimidated. You felt like you were carrying them while pretending they were walking beside you, but now they're gone. And yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it's lonely. Yeah, some nights you still reach for your phone wanting to call them, but look at you. Look at how far you've come since they left. Look at the strength you've built. Look at the clarity you've gained. Look at the person staring back at you in the mirror. That person didn't exist when they were around. That person was buried under the weight of trying to keep them happy. That person was suffocating under the pressure of their expectations. But now that person is free, and freedom looks good on you. The world wants you to believe that being alone is the same as being lonely. It's not. Being alone is a gift when you've been surrounded by the wrong people. Being alone is peace when you've been drowning in chaos. Being alone is healing When you've been bleeding from wounds, they kept reopening. You're not alone because you're unworthy. You're alone because God is preparing you. He's strengthening you. He's teaching you how to stand on your own 2 feet so that when the right people come, you won't need them. You'll choose them. And there's power in that. Let me tell you something about the season you're in right now. This is the building season. This is the quiet before the storm. This is the part of the movie where the hero is training in the mountains before the final battle. Nobody sees this part. Nobody applauds this part. Nobody celebrates this part. But this is the most important part, because what you build in silence will speak loudly when the time comes. What you develop in the dark will shine brightly in the light. What you become when nobody's watching will shock everyone when they finally see you, and they will see you. Oh yes, they will. The same people who walked away like you were nothing will one day look up and see you standing on top of everything they said you'd never achieve. The same people who counted you out will be forced to count your blessings. The same people who left you in your darkest hour will have to witness your brightest moment. But here's the thing. By then, you won't even care. By then, their opinion will be irrelevant. By then, their absence will feel like the greatest gift they ever gave you, because that's what growth does. It changes your perspective. It shifts your priorities. It makes you realize that some losses are actually gains in disguise. You thought losing them was the end of your story. But it was actually the beginning of the best chapter you've ever lived. You thought their exit meant your rejection, but it actually meant your redirection. God wasn't taking something from you. He was taking something that was blocking you. I want you to think about a seed for a moment. When you plant a seed in the ground, it has to be buried in darkness. It has to be covered in dirt. It has to be separated from everything it knew. And if that seed could think, it would probably feel abandoned. It would probably feel forgotten. It would probably wonder why it was thrown into the ground and left alone. But that burial is not the end. That burial is the beginning. Because in that darkness, something miraculous is happening. Roots are forming, strength is building, life is preparing to break through. That's you right now. You feel buried. You feel forgotten. You feel like the world has moved on without you, but you're not buried. You're planted, and everything you're going through right now is just the process of growth. The pain is the pressure creating your diamond. The loneliness is the soil nurturing your roots. The silence is the womb preparing your rebirth. You're not dying, you're becoming. And when you finally break through the surface, when you finally bloom into everything God created you to be, the people who buried you will be the same people standing in your shade. They'll want to act like they were always on your side. They'll want to pretend they never doubted you. They'll want to rewrite history and insert themselves into your success story. But you'll know the truth. You'll remember who was there and who wasn't. You'll remember who believed and who betrayed. You'll remember who stayed and who walked away. But here's my advice. When that moment comes, don't waste it on revenge. Don't use your success as a weapon against them. Don't lower yourself to their level by rubbing it in their faces. Your victory is not about them. Your victory is about you. Your victory is about proving to yourself that you are always enough. Your victory is about honoring the version of you that refused to give up, even when giving up seemed like the only option. Your victory is about showing God that His investment in you was worth it. The best revenge is not destruction. The best revenge is elevation. The best revenge is becoming so successful, so peaceful, so fulfilled that their opinion becomes irrelevant. The best revenge is looking at them with no hate in your heart because they no longer have power over you. The best revenge is thanking them for leaving because their absence made room for your abundance. You see, when you truly heal from what they did, you don't want them to suffer. You just want them to see. You want them to see that their betrayal didn't break you. You want them to see that their abandonment didn't define you. You want them to see that every weapon they formed against you failed miserably, not because you fought back, but because you kept going. You kept pushing. You kept believing. Even when belief felt impossible, even when hope felt foolish, even when the odds were stacked against you, you kept moving forward. And that's the part they'll never understand. They thought walking away would destroy you. They thought their absence would be your ending. But all they did was remove the distraction. All they did was clear the path. All they did was make room for God to do what he does best. Turn your pain into power. Turn your test into testimony. Turn your mess into a message that will inspire millions. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to stop mourning people who were never meant to stay. I want you to stop questioning why they left and start thanking God that they did. I want you to stop looking back at closed doors when God is opening windows you can't even see yet. I want you to shift your focus from what you lost to what you're about to gain, because something is coming. I can feel it in my spirit. Something big is heading your way, and it's going to require every ounce of strength you've built in this season. It's going to require the wisdom you gained from the pain. It's going to require the discernment you developed from the betrayal. Everything you went through was preparation. Everything you survived was training. Everything you lost was making room for what's about to overflow. The people who left were not meant to see you win, but you know who is meant to see it. The people who stayed, the ones who believed in you when you couldn't believe in yourself, the ones who held you up when you were too weak to stand, the ones who spoke life into you when everyone else spoke death. Those are your people. Those are the ones who deserve front row seats to your victory. Those are the ones who will celebrate with you without an ounce of jealousy. And if you look around and feel like no one stayed, if you feel like everyone abandoned you, then let me be the one to tell you that God stayed. He never left. He never gave up on you. He was there in the darkest night. He was there in the hardest moment. He was there when you cried yourself to sleep. He was there when you screamed into the void. He was there collecting every tear, storing every prayer, preparing every blessing. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not alone. You are chosen. You are protected. You are destined for greatness that will make your past pain look like a small price to pay. The removal was necessary. The separation was divine. The loneliness was intentional, because God is setting a table for you in the presence of your enemies, and he needed to clear out the guests who didn't belong. So lift your head up, dry your tears, straighten your crown, and walk into your next season with confidence. Not confidence in people, because people will fail you. Not confidence in circumstances, because circumstances will change. But confidence in the God who removed what was blocking you to make room for what's blessing you. They were never meant to see you win. And honestly, that's their loss. Because what God is about to do in your life is going to be legendary. It's going to be the kind of story people tell for generations. It's going to be proof that rejection is just redirection, that abandonment is just acceleration, that the pain was just the price of admission to a level they could never afford. Your season is changing. Your moment is coming. Your victory is closer than it's ever been. And when you finally stand in the fullness of everything God promised you, the only thing you'll feel toward those who left is gratitude. Gratitude that they got out of the way. Gratitude that they removed themselves. Gratitude that God loved you enough to clear the path. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your story. And it's just getting started. The best is not behind you. The best is ahead of you, and you're going to walk into it without the dead weight of people who were never meant to carry the vision God gave you. God removed them because they were never meant to see you win. So stop crying over their exit and start preparing for your entrance. The stage is being set, the lights are coming on, and your name is about to be called. Get ready, because everything is about to change. You know what's interesting about the people who leave? They always seem to have perfect timing. They never leave when things are easy. They never walk away when everything is going smooth. No, they wait. They wait until you're at your lowest. They wait until you need them the most. They wait until their absence will cause the maximum amount of damage. And then they vanish like smoke in the wind. At first, you think it's coincidence. You think maybe life just got in the way. Maybe they got busy. Maybe something happened that pulled them away. But deep down, you know the truth. They chose to leave. They made a decision. They looked at you in your broken state, and they decided you weren't worth staying for. That's a wound that cuts deep. That's the kind of pain that changes you forever. But here's what they didn't count on. They didn't count on you surviving. They didn't count on you rising. They didn't count on the very pain they caused becoming the fuel that drives you forward. They thought their abandonment would be your destruction. But God had other plans. God always has other plans. See, the enemy sends people into your life to distract you, delay you, and ultimately destroy you. But God uses those same people to develop you. He takes what was meant for evil and turns it for good. He takes the weapon formed against you and turns it into a tool for your advancement. They thought they were breaking you, but all they were doing was building you. Every tear you cried watered the seeds of your comeback. Every sleepless night strengthened your resolve. Every moment of doubt pushed you closer to faith. Every time you wanted to give up but didn't, you proved that you were made of something they couldn't understand. You proved that there's a fire inside you that refuses to be extinguished. And now, look at you. Still standing, still breathing, still fighting, still believing after everything they did, after every lie they told, after every promise they broke, after every time they made you feel like you were nothing. You're still here. And you're not just surviving anymore, you're preparing to thrive. The comeback is always greater than the setback. Remember that. Write it on your mirror. Tattoo it on your soul. Because what you're about to walk into is going to make everything you went through worth it. The pain was not pointless. The suffering was not senseless. It was all preparation for a promotion that's going to blow your mind. God removed them because they were never meant to see you win. But more than that, He removed them because they were never meant to share in your victory. They were takers, not givers. They were drainers, not builders. They were anchors, not wings. And you can't fly with anchors attached to your feet. So let them go. Not just physically, but emotionally. Release the anger. Release the resentment. Release the fantasies of what could have been. None of that serves you anymore. The only thing holding on to them does is keep you connected to a past that's already dead, and you can't step into your future if you're still chained to your history.